Settle in, relax, and prepare your mind for tonight's feature presentation, a transformative experience brought to you by Mallard. Your company for life.
Lights, camera, action.
Recap camp.
Joe wakes up one morning in an unknown place. He is trapped in a four-walled room. There is no ceiling for this large cell, and of course, there is no way out. Joe is stuck there and has no idea how he ended up in this situation. He finds an exit door and screams, hoping someone will hear him, but he gets no response. He starts yelling until finally a few people respond, though not in a friendly manner. They simply tell him to shut up and not disturb their work. Someone answers him through a small window. The man tells him he has to wait until tomorrow morning to get answers to all his questions. Joe insists that he wants to know right now where he is and why he has been brought there, but the man says he can't answer his questions and needs to get back to work. Joe desperately tries to find a way out. But it's useless. Suddenly, the window opens and a food package is thrown into the cell. Joe tries to stop the guard and talk to him, but the window closes on his hand, injuring it. Joe spends a quiet night until a screen appears on the wall of the cell.
Hello, Joe, and welcome to Advanced Career Training.
Telling him that tomorrow will be his first day at work. Joe is confused. What job? What is he supposed to do? He tries to talk to the voice, but gets no response.
Cut it back on! Mallard! Mallard, information, please!
Now that the work shift is over, his neighbor can talk to him.
It's not broken.
He tells him that this place belongs to their company, Mallard, and everyone has a different reason for being there. After that, chaos fills the air. Joe panics and tries to calm himself in a corner of the cell, but it's futile. The next morning, the cell guard tells Joe from outside that he must keep the cell clean or face penalties. Joe has to throw all the garbage from the food he eats into the same toilet hole. He does this but finds something in the dirt next to him. It's a skull. Joe panics and rushes to the channel to ask his neighbor about it. He tells him that there's probably more than one dead person in the cell. Joe is bewildered and doesn't understand a word he says. He explains that this mess was caused by their company. They had several non-disclosure clauses in their contract. Joe never read that part. The company allowed itself to do whatever it wanted with its employees. They are being punished for negligence within the company, and no one knows how long they have to stay there. Maybe months, maybe years. The voice tells him that the reason he is there is that he misused the benefits given to him and his work performance dropped. But Joe only has one task in his job. He must push the pole in the middle of the cell until he reaches his daily quota each day. Anyone who fails to meet their daily requirement will be punished. But that's not all. Among all those condemned to this task, anyone who does the least amount of work each day will be eliminated, or in other words, killed. Joe gradually understands the meaning of the gunshots he heard last night. He cannot accept it and screams, but no one pays attention. His neighbor just tells him one thing: do it to stay alive. Joe immediately realizes that moving this thing is much harder than he thought. With all his strength, Joe struggles. His quota for the first day is 50 rotations, but even doing one rotation is exhausting for him. Hours pass until finally Joe manages to complete his first day successfully.
Congratulations, Joe.
After that, chaos erupts again. Joe considers himself lucky that today is not his day of death. The next morning, Joe thinks only of his wife and his unborn child and wants to escape this hell for their sake. That night, Joe manages to work 3 times his daily quota. At the end of the night, the guard's voice comes in and tells Joe to take off all his clothes. Joe does this with fear and reluctance, and the door opens for him to enter. Joe thinks they are going to do something terrible to him, but just because he worked much more than his daily quota, he gets a cleaning, shower. The third day begins, and Joe can't stop thinking about his wife. What he's doing is practically useless and only serves as punishment for him. While working, his neighbor says something that deepens Joe's thoughts. Before that, only one person had managed to escape from this place, and Joe wonders why no one has paid attention to this until now. The next day, due to Joe's great success, He is gifted a pen, which makes him so overwhelmed that he throws it outside. His daily quota increases to 370 rotations. Joe starts his work, but with his first turn, the number remains at 0. Confused, Joe's neighbor tells him that he has probably been punished and that every 2 times he turns the wheel counts as 1 rotation. Joe tries harder than before, but fails. His neighbor realizes that Joe actually needs to complete 740 rotations, and since this is the highest daily quota, now all the cells must also complete 740 rotations to pay for Joe's actions. Everyone, including his neighbor, becomes furious and causes a lot of noise. The display shows Joe's wife's information, and he realizes that something might happen to her and that he will have to spend the night in punishment. Joe pushes himself to the limit and doesn't stop for even a moment. Due to the immense pressure, he even confronts himself and tries to convince himself to be able to see his child. This is the only way. Night falls, and Joe manages to complete 740 rotations, thus eliminating his punishment. As a reward, they show him a picture of his wife who has just given birth. Now Joe has only one goal. The next morning, Joe asks his friend about the person who managed to escape from here, but he doesn't know much either. Joe finds the pen he had thrown and realizes there's only one spot that is a blind spot for the camera and starts digging there. He works during the days and digs at the wall at night, and apparently the walls aren't as solid as they should be. Days pass and Joe digs the hole enough to get through it. He enters the hole but ends up in another cell where a guard knocks him out. The next day, Joe wakes up in a new cell with no sign of the hole. Now it's time for punishment. The guards enter his friend's cell and break his legs. Joe is shocked but can't do anything to help. His friend's time is up. His friend confesses that he built the entire system here for the company, and now it has become a death trap for everyone. An idea comes to Joe's mind. Joe starts shouting to alert all the cells. He tells them that if no one works, they might be able to prevent their deaths. Everyone is initially hesitant, but Joe convinces them with his speech to stop working. Hours pass, and no one does anything until suddenly the sound of turning is heard. Someone starts working, breaking the unity. Joe tries to stop him, but soon the sound of turning is heard everywhere. Joe is more worried about his friend and has no hope for his rescue. Night falls. Joe talks to him one last time until the guards come and eliminate him. Joe cannot forgive himself for what happened to his only friend. The next morning, there's no sign of Joe working. He can't and doesn't want to continue. The Mallard system tries to calm him down, but when it sees it's futile, they decide to eliminate Joe. The door opens, and 12 people strangely enter his cell. The main guard enters the cell and prepares the equipment. Joe doesn't understand what's going on and attacks the main guard to save his life, hitting him as much as he can in the face. The 12 people behave strangely and don't even stop Joe. Joe has gone insane and completely lost control until he finds himself in a room. The person in charge approaches him. His name is Johnny. Joe is confused and doesn't know how all this happened. Johnny tells him that what he experienced was a simulation of job training. It has only been 60 minutes since this simulation started, but it feels like months have passed. He tells him that his son hasn't been born yet and that Johnny is still alive because he is exactly the same guard whose face Joe smashed. Joe demonstrated his leadership skills exceptionally during the simulation and has now received a promotion. Johnny shows Joe his new office and, of course, asks him to sign a non-disclosure agreement to ensure that nothing about the simulator leaks outside the company. Afterwards, Joe calls his wife to make sure she is doing well, and he doesn't realize how happy he is to hear her voice again. Now Joe believes in only one thing. None of these events were humane and should never happen again. He now has only one goal.
I'm gonna burn this down.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, you know what to do.
We hope your journey through tonight's feature presentation has been both enjoyable and enlightening. We trust you were stirred to evaluate and conquer your personal quotas today, tomorrow, and into the future.